moderate. The purpose of this is to brainstorm as how India can become a hub for innovation and drug discovery. And what we are going to discuss not only just applies to India, but to many of the developing and emerging countries as well. So it will be very relevant to everybody who belong to India and, obviously the other countries I just talked about. Simply, the purpose, as I said, is to brainstorm, and at the end, we will find solutions. I want to be able to summarize 3 solutions that we can take forward as from how India and other countries can become a powerhouse in drug discovery, right? So that's the objective is at least 3 suggestions from the people who are here on the panel and who are really experts in what they do, make suggestions on how we can move forward. So a lot of problem solving is going to happen. It's a very interactive session. The format is I will ask a question to each panelist, and they will have 5 minutes to answer. And it might be a dialogue more than just a monologue. So when I ask you a question, I might interrupt and ask you another question. I hope that's all right. So 5 minutes for each of them, after which I will summarize what we have learned today. And then finally, we'll open the floor open for questions from the audience, and I will moderate, and direct the questions that come from the audience. So let's begin from those who are actually on the screen here. I see Dr. Vijay Pal Singh very clearly and looking very sharp. So I'm going to actually begin with you, sir, to ask you a question. I actually did a lot of research on your background before I'm asking you this question. And you have obviously been very visible at FSSAI, and you've done very good work there, and now you're moving on to WHO. One of the big challenges that we have in India with regards to drug discovery and development are the lack of clarity on regulatory guidelines. As a case in point, in the US FDA, if you file an IND, which is the first in man study permission, within 30 days, if you don't hear back from them, you can automatically begin the study, right? So there is no, there's no fuzziness about what it means. You send your application in, they'll stamp and date it. 30 days from then, you can begin your trial. So very simple things, and I'm just telling you about one potential thing that they do, but there are many other things that they do. And if you ask any startup or even large pharma, I've been both, the pet peeve is our regulatory bodies, CDSCO or the other ones, are really not there yet. And so why this bureaucracy, and is anything being done? Because this is such a big bottleneck for all of the drugs to move into clinical trials, not just for Indian pharma, but even for others coming. So what is being done, sir, by the Indian government?
Thank you very much, Dr. Uday Saxena. And before I start, I would like to thank Dr. Suresh Poosala, sir, my guru. I could not recognize, I think he's now, okay, bald. He's
going into Telugu movies now, so.
Yeah. He's my guru, Dr. Redema, and also Dr. Jagdish Gandala. Coming back to your question, Dr. Uday, things are changing. You said that there is a 30 days moratorium or kind of a thing in FDA of US. Same thing is there in FSSAI, Food Safety Standard Authority of India. Suppose you apply for license, apply for anything. If you don't hear within 30 days, you deem to get a license. Okay.
Yes,
this is I'm saying about Food Safety Standard Authority of India. Suppose you apply for license, you apply for some approval. And that is everything is online, everything is faceless. There is nobody who can, because whatever the emphasis of the government is to try to make it as simple as less our paperwork. Earlier, to apply for a single license, we used to have more than 70 paperwork. Now it is very less. As of now, I'm talking to just FSSAI. I will come to CDSCO also, whatever the little knowledge I have. So very less paper, online application, 30 days is the limit. If you don't hear, your license is deemed approved. So this is from the FSSAI point of view. And as far as CDSCO is concerned, yes, I agree with you. Because Dr. Poosala is sitting here, we were setting the standard for antibiotic in food for the safe limit, what we popularly call as MRL, maximum residue limit. It is difficult to get a response from the drug authority, even for the people who are very neighbor, they are down and we were up. But slowly, I think everything there is also changing and it is becoming online. I would not comment on that regulation because I'm not part of the CDSCO, but yes, I can comment in FSSAI. I was there. I'm planning to go there back again as a permanent employee, but things are changing. If you write, people listen, and these 30 days things have already come into FSSAI, and there is a days when it will come to even CDSCO where you file something online, you will hear from them. If you will not hear from them, then it will be deemed a license. But as of now, I limit, and I can comment with this my means whatever knowledge we have, that we have a dedicated platform called as FOSCOS. Every license of restaurant, every license of your this food place, like bigger premises of hotel, everything is online and time limit is 30 days. We have the discussion and same with this CDSCO that why things are not moving. Because earlier we had tried to have a veterinary drug residue safe limit. There was no veterinary division, Dr. Uday, there. And there is no veterinary. Now they have a veterinary division at least for approval of the things for the veterinary, these things. Slowly things are moving, and now new DCGI is, I think, very dynamic and have an industrial background. I see that the new change will come, but I will not comment on the CDSCO, but I can 100% comment that things are changing and have changed, will change a lot for the favor of the people at the FSSAI. They have changed a lot. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a great answer. Just a very quick follow-up question. What kind of time frame are we looking at for these changes to happen by DCGI and CDSCO? Are we looking in the next few months or years, or we don't know? Just a rough idea of when these changes that you think are going to happen will happen.
Sir, this is again an arbitrary question. The present DCGI is as innovative and as good person as like Uday Saxena and Dr. Poosala, whom I met personally. They are basically for science. They are basically for science. And I sit in many committees, so we raise this question, okay, sir, there should be something like this. So he is very, very, means I know, kind of a doer person. So I see that I think within I won't say time limit because it's not my forte, not my area, but I think in a year, sure, you will see some change, tangible change.
Okay, I think that's really great to hear. Mamta, I know you take notes. I think so. One summary here is that regulatory guidelines in India are going to change in the future for the better. I think that's a clear answer that's been given by the panelists. Thank you so much, Vijay. If time permits, I will come back, but I think that was very, very well put. And your honesty about what you know and what you don't know really came off very, very nicely. We need people like you in leadership roles. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
I'm going to come to Manish next. As I said, I want to address the people who are actually logged in. Manish, I have done several of these with you. You probably know what questions I'm going to ask, and I know what you're going to answer. I'm not going to talk about BIRAC. First of all, I'm going to change it a little bit, and I'm going to bowl you a slower one, not the regular fastball. My question is, one of the big things that startup companies, which I think are the most innovative in India, I don't think there's any debate. Well, they are taking a risk in the science idea itself, which is fine because that's their training. But the bigger risk I see is the more you innovate, the bigger risk is in the financial risk. And this is a question I had asked a Niti Aayog member when he was in Hyderabad recently, and he said this is something they're aware of and working. Can you just, I don't know what BIRAC thinks about, And by the way, Bayrak, I think, is a role model for, how to push innovation both by academia as well as industry. I think the BIG program is a world-class program. But how do we address this issue of when I run out of 50 lakhs, right? Again, the question of how do I do the next thing? Where do I get the money from? The VC incentives in India are not very good. So this risk money that I have to raise, I'm trained as a scientist, not as a business person. And yet that's what happens, right? So what are your thoughts on how we can, you know, make risk capital and risk financial accessible to these companies? All they have is not a building, there's no collateral, there's only intellectual property. So I'd like to pick your brains on that aspect, Manish.
No, thanks, Uday. I think we all understand the drug discovery and leading to a identification of a clinical candidate, and then developing it all the way for clinical trials and taking to the market. It's a very long journey, and each of the stages require plenty of investments, and far beyond 50 lakh rupees, which can just make you move from, let's say, either a hit identification or some bit of lead optimization or a characterization of a molecular target, not even to a full extent. So I think it's just a trigger point that puts you on a path, and there are many follow-through schemes which are non-dilutive in nature, non-dilutive equity in nature, and take you all the way up to, let's say, $1 million or a couple of them. We have schemes, as you all know, where we can support up to clinical trial, phase 3 clinical trial as well. But part of that, 50% of that fund needs to come from the industry itself. So there is provision, but it's not enough for everybody to attain that. And not everybody can be funded as well. So we have done few initiatives. One is fund of funds, where we have invested as a minor LP and asked the AIS to invest at least 2x into the biotech startups and SMEs. So in that, we have now 10 daughter funds which are operational. And within, let's say, from 2018 till today, 733 crore has been invested through the daughter funds. And we have also finished a second round of identification of another 6 daughter funds. So there is more the private funding, VC funding, which is coming on the way. We have initiated another new initiative, which is called BioAngels platform, where non-initiated angels and VCs can undertake a syndicate investment into biotech startups and SMEs. So that will, like, a person who is not initiated in the direction, doesn't have the technical depth, but still see biotech as sunrise sector and find some deals that can have large potential impact in the future. So they can come in and do a combined syndicate investment so that they don't run the risk of being a lead investor. So these are some of the initiatives where private funding has been attracted, so that the more of them becomes available in the pharma, including the biotech space. But I think we need to. These are only smaller initiatives. I think the larger piece must come, larger chunks must come from the green shoots that are now being visible from the ecosystem, and that in turn has been able to trigger an interest from pharma industry, from leading corporates. So an interesting trend, what has been noticed is that pharma companies still hesitant to come forward to commit fully to take a molecule all the way forward. And you would, I think everybody would relate to a decision in the pharma, being a large organization, would have a larger limitation, and many people need to move in sync. So what has happened is, the trend is that the MDs, CEOs of the pharma companies, they have started investing in the companies on their personal level. They have become LPs in venture funds, which is investing in the startups. They have become, let's say, lead mentor of a pharma company or a biotech company. So this trend is healthy, and I see this is getting propagated, and many more pharma companies have started coming on board. Some of the pharma, they have picked up startups from our ecosystem, like Achira was picked up. Immunil has been invested by Kiran, Dr. Kiran. There are the Shycocan, a medical device, is being promoted by HCL. So like that, there are several examples. Reddy's, Dr. Satish has its own 5 garage fund. Many of these celebrities have also started coming in and investing in I'm talking about the Bollywood celebrities.
I think
or the other HNIs. So I think this will continue to move. And there's one interesting feature. I'll take another 30 seconds and then stop.
Sure.
We all understand that AI ML is integral for biotech sciences and new innovations, and it has become very evident. The chat GPT, everybody understands, but I think the more importantly, protein folding, which has been suddenly got unraveled by Google's AlphaFold, solving hundreds and millions of protein structures. I think that knowledge would become trivial as we move forward. In silico's medicine, the recent publication says they were able to identify a nanomolar hit in just 1 month of the target discovery. So it has actually sped up the entire game. And I am very hopeful that India has already demonstrated its leadership in the IT domain. So in no amount of time, we can also, it is kind of a leveling of the field. And we can also be front runners in picking up the game in the next league from here. I think this will take, and the background that has happened, like the ecosystem experience over a period of time, where we already have examples like Curadev, Enveda, Shantani, Zumotor. So I think there are already shining examples, demonstrated evidence that we have now presence in the field. So in some amount of time, I think we will be going there. And the genetic pool that is available in India, kind of unmatched. If the clinical trials are done, a new molecule is tested in India, it can very well fit for all across the world. Right now, we are kind of custom fitting it, something developed in US, Europe to India, which is 1/6 of the population of the world. So I see future is interesting that way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Manish. I think if I can just summarize, first of all, that was very articulate. And I think, so you're saying the government has more schemes now to be able to take an idea all the way into the clinic and potentially one day all the way into the market also, maybe. That's on the horizon, it looks like, which is great. The other thing which I think you said, which is very, very exciting, is newer models of risk capital are coming in the form of people who are well versed in biotech, right? Like Dr. Kiran Mazumdar Shah. I mean, she knows this landscape. And if she is investing, so one of the problem was in India, at least, was people who really didn't understand biotech invested because they had heard that there is going to be a next wave coming. What I'm hearing from you is people who have a strong, successful background in the industry are now risking their personal money into the businesses as venture capitalists. Is that an accurate summary, Manish? Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's a huge validation
Absolutely.
of what we are seeing the ecosystem's potential.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, that was a huge value add to hear that, and from somebody who, like you, who pretty much knows the whole ecosystem in India about startup and everything. So, Mamta, I think we got the summary that there are newer models of risk capital that are coming in that involve people who are not from real estate, but from the biopharma industry, and they are risking their personal money, which means they really believe that there is value to come out of that. So thank you, Manish. If time permits, we'll come back to you. My next
Sure.
question is to CSN. Good to see you again, CSN. You dropped off the radar for, I don't know, for the last 4 or 5 years, but very nice to see you. I really have a very difficult question for you. And the question is, most startups, 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, in India and so are in the US are started off by scientists like you and me and all of us sitting here. But it is very clear there is a use by date for a scientist CEO. There, if you're a successful company, you will need to be replaced by a business person, right? I see that India, there is a lot of reluctance. In US, the VC will say, get the hell out. If I need somebody who will now make money for me, right? I mean, it's very clear there. The board will throw you out, whether you like it or not. I see a lot of resistance to that idea in India. The common thing I hear is, but I took all the risk. I own 80% of the company. Why are you throwing me out, right? And the board then has to say, buddy, you did great. That's why we have to throw you out. So this is a conundrum that India is going through. This needs to be solved one day. Do you have any solutions on how not to alienate the scientist CEO and, replace him with somebody who will grow the business to the $1 billion? I mean, what is your thinking on this? Sure, sure.
So you are not audible, sir.
Yeah, we can't hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, C.S.N, we can't hear you, C.S.N.
Still, we can't hear you.
Yeah, no, we can
Yeah, let's see if this time helps at all. But so I think if we look at the overall cycle from the India context, we are still at the very, very beginning of what I think the biotech ecosystem but needs to be developed is at as compared to what's been happening, for example, in the US for so many years, but importantly, what we see now happening incredibly in China. So just as an aside, I'd like to mention that yesterday or day before, I think there was a very nice webinar that IQVIA had organized, where actually they said something like 15% of all clinical trials right now in the US are coming from companies that are headquartered in China, up from something like 2% in 2007. And they are now the third largest source immediately after the US and the EU, having overtaken Japan, which until recently was the third largest. So, but the reason I'm saying that is that we obviously are not even on that horizon as yet. There's hardly any Indian origin compounds that are in any sizable number in the clinic anywhere in the world. I'm talking about NCs, of course, or NBs or what have you. So I think the number of examples of successful companies being so few, the overall kicker will really come in after you see a few examples of companies that have successfully executed on, even if not taking something all the way to the market, somebody who has consistently been able to generate value through licensing out of assets that have been generated in the Indian context. And I think we are probably, with some luck, at the very beginning of that cycle. Now, what actually it takes for a business to be successful, much as you rightly pointed out, in the US, the typical founders of the company happen to be, for the large part, academia. And then the VCs come in, and when they come in actually with their own team, which typically comes from either other successful biotechs or from pharma, because they actually use these linkages in turn either to raise further money to actually accelerate their way to the clinic, or subsequently find partners back with the same pharma, which eventually has the muscle to be able to take things all the way through the clinic. So I think it is probably not unfair from the investor standpoint, that they are looking for people who have successfully delivered on this model and then consistently created value, so much so that there are superstar CEOs who actually just have to go out and stand in the market. They're able to raise $1 billion. There are examples of that in the last 4 or 5 years that we have seen of companies having raised over $1 billion because they start off with superstar CEOs. So I think that's a trend that eventually will have to happen for every business to be successful. But I think we can also say that they are standing on the shoulders of giants who actually have come up with the targets, who have come up with the validation, who have come up with the appropriate science to be able to take it to that extent. But without these giant shoulders to stand on, no CEO really can, even coming from a non-academic or a non-scientific background, can deliver. But it's this combination of people who are founding great companies based on outstanding ideas, together with people who have demonstrated the ability to generate value. That's a model that actually is there to stay, and I think we'll have to embrace it and then move on from there. I think, but given where we are at right now in India, I think what really the big kicker that is lacking as yet is the demonstration that we can really create this kind of a value. But like Manish just mentioned, I think there are a few good examples. Enveda is obviously one of the more recent ones that has raised about $100 million. And then we have other companies as well. Immunil is obviously a great example. Look at the kind of founders that it has. Look at the kind of area that it got into in a very, very timely fashion. So I think the endorsement from the Biocon founder in terms of putting in the money is really what is needed for these ideas to take on. But eventually, I think it has to be seasoned business guys who've done this before, who actually can deliver.
Let's give you a side anecdote, especially in the US. We got a funding. We actually got a company listed on the. We got funding, and I went to CSO and from the LLC. We were asked by the board not to travel in the same flight. The reason being, if the flight goes down, they have lost all their value in the month. Right? So that is the extent to which the system in the US is so harsh. It might have been the best of their practical scientists, but when you need a business person, you can tell. So the failure experience, I'm so happy to see. But once you do get there and show people that,
I would definitely say that, because in fact, there are, if you look at the overall biotech ecosystem in the US, it is kind of templated. It is templated very well. So the funny thing is, the risk that the companies are taking in terms of science is incredible. But what the financials on the other side are doing is using formula that works incredibly well. They are extremely straight. They're very, very conservative in their approach, and they follow exactly the same model all the time because it's worked so very well. Of course, there are exceptions all the time. The most recent one, Greg Verdine has started a company. Just then, he's been replaced as the CEO. And this is Greg Verdine we're talking talking about. Absolutely. I mean, he was so closely involved with the.
We need to think about forward. So it was a reform that has to be passed on, right? That culture in India is not there. One other take home here that people very carefully the money because you don't want somebody who wants this and probably figure out the
Absolutely. I think the source of money, quality of the money, as they say, is more important than the absolute quantum of the money itself. And we also have to innovate, I think, in Indian context, that rather than building companies only on valuation, people for the foreseeable future, we need to build revenue, still parallel creating value because we still have our revenues and we still have our cash flows. So I think we have to find these models that allow us to continue to exist even as we try and innovate. I think that's going to be something unique in the Indian market. I think we should do well.
My next question, thank you so much. If there is time, I'll come back. Really good to see you after, I don't know, years. Dr. Ratnakar, I'm going in this order. You're one of the few senior executives saw the value saying.
Sorry, I think this is some mask for online people. Who are not taking have this.
Okay, why don't you? I don't need it.
Yeah, yeah, Uday.
Okay. Oh, okay. Is this the end? What is the business end here?
So you hold this when you speak, and then the target when you speak also have it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is this better, guys?
Yeah, thanks.
Or,
It's very
yeah.
helpful. Otherwise,
this
we
is-
are not able to hear you.
Oh, okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Yeah. Thank you, Jagdish. You're one of the few senior executives, Ratnakar, who chose to see the value in investing in a startup as a organization. And more recently, you have replicated that model into an academic institution as well. That is a very rare finding in India. Nobody wants to, as an investor, nobody wants to invest in academia. I mean, that's an honest, let's be honest about that. Why did you choose to invest in academia? What value did you see and say, hey, I think I have a winner here and I can, take my CEO's money and invest it there. It could have cost you a job, for example, right? So what was the vision you had? Yeah.
Wonderful, Jeshik. Thanks, Suresh. Yeah, I think point well made. In fact, the example what you just cited happened at a time where India needs such an intervention. And the industry also was at the time trying to, risk themselves well in terms of bringing some of the innovations which the country badly needed at the time. I think we heard from Dr. Prem Kumar Reddy, followed by Manish, and was well as the speaker in terms of the need for academia to foster the research and bring in innovative, that's all innovative, I think the only ask to that extent, and the reason why at that particular time we just not, like I said, we did first my job. I had the things not gone well, but yes, I think there is a good belief in terms of academia can actually make the change in terms of bringing the need of our solutions, which the market at that time wants to bring it. Second thing is, as we heard from the previous speakers, there is only something industry can do. There is a lot of things academia can do. I think the best part would be how can we actually marry both? Academia bringing in the strengths which they have, industry embracing those strengths and then taking forward. I think there is a fine line difference
between those two. And both, I think you just mentioned to Mamta in terms of your key takeaway points from CSN about that kind of baton passing on. I think this is the best example of a baton passing on from academia into the industry. Right? There is something which industry can bring in, which I think that's a beautiful synergy which can actually come in the collaboration of academia and industry. And I would also like to bring in one or two more points on that particular field. Manish did point it out in terms of how the drug discovery is getting enormous amount of benefit from next gen technologies, and that's where I want to bring in how technology companies are investing heavily, and that's where again I see academia coming and joining hands. In fact, we heard from Dr. Vijay Pal Singh in terms of FSSAI and CDSCO. I just also wanted to have one element to that, which is FDA has come out with digital health center of excellence. Objective is how can they bring in all the stakeholders, academia, industry, and various stakeholders in the ecosystem come together and challenge the current constraints and bring out solutions. Probably, I think that is one, especially in it's a platform. It's a platform, a center of excellence, where these AI, machine learning, large language models are currently deployed by industry, and there is a large amount of collaboration required across the stakeholder ecosystem, which this particular COE can help. Maybe I think the need of the hour is the Indian regulatory system has to bring in that platform of academia, industry, and the various stakeholders joining hands in terms of having a COE. That's one point I want to bring in because we are discussing about the industry academia collaboration. Second element is if you look at globally, the big four tech companies, the Amazons, the Googles, the Apple, all of them have estimated about $1 trillion upwards in terms of digital technologies playing a larger role in the healthcare and life sciences ecosystem. Dr. Manish has really pointed out a fantastic area where these technologies can be embraced in the drug discovery. I see a greater collaboration again happening between academia and industry in terms of bringing these two elements together. The large tech companies joining hands with academia, and even India is not behind that. I think there is lots of work which has actually happened in that, where these technologies can actually start collaborating. The tech companies can start collaborating with academia. That's the precise example what you just started the discussion. How the tech companies started looking at academia for collaboration. That's exactly where the technologies can come in. And today everywhere, I think you also mentioned somewhere Chat GPT, which is nothing but the large language models. I think today the tech companies are looking at bringing in large language models in the healthcare and life sciences industry. And I see a strong collaboration out there. And I think the forum what we are discussing now should set the platform for a very strong collaboration between academia and industry. Mostly the technology industry which I represent can actually fasten the entire process of drug discovery. I think we heard from Dr. Prem already the whole 9 yards of the drug discovery, and I could actually see a lot of elements which technology can play a larger role, shrinking the timelines, bringing novel compounds. Best example is COVID, which taught us how we can actually reduce the entire timelines.
Thank you so much. Somebody is to reach out. So you believe that you invested because you felt there was
an unmet need out of which A, it was nationalistic at that time, it was a COVID time, and B, you saw real value, not just, you did not do a charity, but you saw real value. So it looks like, Mamta, the future of collaborations between industry and academia are going to be based on either side seeing real value rather than just as a token, which I think a lot of it right now is being done as a token. I want to bring in Professor Redena, who has thought about this more than anybody else in India, I think, at least to my knowledge. Professor Redena, I'm going to be honest and say that when I look at academia, I will give it to him. I look at the individual. It really doesn't matter to me whether you're in academia and industry. And as of today, I don't find that many people in academia in whom I can invest money. There's a lot of confidence, which is probably my short-sightedness. What do you think the academia needs to do to kind of, get rid of that lack of confidence, which is our loss? I mean, there's no question. But in your opinion, you've seen both sides. What do you think an academic needs to do to attract funding from industry and start a collaboration?
Would you like these two answers now, or should the panel?
Well, no, I think since we are on the topic, I'll manage the time. That's all I know how to do. So,
I think the new government is pushing the academy also. Yeah, pushing the academy also to that direction. The funding for academic institutions, the luxury that academic institutions enjoyed all these years is no more. Now they have to raise the funding from other sources, including CSR labs or DBT labs, any of government funded labs or central universities also have no choice except embracing the industry or raising other sources of funding. And this is the time I think many of the academic institutions, the Hyderabad Innovation Cluster meeting that we organized in Genome Valley, all the academic institutions came all the way to Genome Valley. There is no way that all these institutions would have come for such kind of meeting earlier, but now they're all looking for such kind of interaction. Of course, we should congratulate the government to stop the funding. So, but at the same time, I think industry also is realizing that they have to be innovative in order to be globally competitive. They also understood that the value will come once such kind of interaction is taking place. So that is the one anyway. I think you see the change in the scenario between academy and industry interaction. More and more interactions are taking place. But one important thing that our government and institutions also have to think is that for this drug discovery specifically, there is academy industry interactions at least is on the move, but basic scientists and clinicians, there is no link at all. And without that, we will not be able to move to the next level. Translation research requires all the efforts that I have made, at least in Hyderabad Innovation Cluster, it stops with the signing of the MOU. It is not moving forward. Why? See, either the CSR labs or central universities, IITs, many of them working on biomedical research problems without understanding what is happening in the clinic. And in the hospitals, All India Institute of Medical Sciences, there is very few basic scientists located there. And basic scientists are treated as a secondary citizen. Today we see more, Dr. Prem Kumar Reddy in Mount Sinai Hospital, how he is able to do the clinicians with the clinician. So that is something that we need to bring in order to come up with innovative drug discovery. So hopefully, for the University of Hyderabad, for the past 40 years, we have been trying to have a medical school and hospital, which is not happening. And today's government also, I do not know whether such kind of things will happen, ever happen. Yeah. But there is the unmet need.
I think it was a very, very, very critical insight. One is that the government is also starting to push academia out of their comfort zone and become more organization.
Exactly.
You have to develop ideas. if you want to be in disease biology, clinicians and academics, we have to collaborate. That's not happening enough in India. Completely agree. That is the gap I think Mamta should beautifully. I think that is my something I was going to. In fact, my next question is, Suresh, thank you, Professor Ratana, thank you so much. Is based on that, Suresh. For us to, I mean, for us to get a product out there for a certain disease, you have to first of all understand the disease to the nth degree, right, to the last atom of the target. And some of the tools that are so commonly used in the US, transgenic knockout or transgenics to create a validated target, knockouts to see its role, PDX models, these are taken for granted and even him. But I don't see that happening in India. I mean, as an in vivo biologist, I know you came specifically for that purpose to create some of those tools. What was the frustration that you had, and why is not enough of disease biology being practiced at that level, you think?
Well, thank you, Uday. I think that brings up the challenge of how we understand the basic biology of lab animals, to be particular. One of the key challenges I faced is the universities and academics don't offer courses on creating transgenic models. Even today, there are probably 1 or 2 colleges in entire India. And that is the struggle and the challenge I faced even to hire people who understand transgenics. So we have to translocate people from USA who work with me over there into our institute. That's one way I could address that, fix it, because the local talent is simply not there because the colleges are not there that train them in creating these exceptionally good translational models. I would also add humanized mice to your list of PDX and other things. And if you look at what has happened with these mice, the contributions has been immensely high. Personally, with Opdivo and Erwai, the 2 drugs that used humanized mice to create drugs, blockbusters for treating cancers, checkpoint inhibitors, you know that. This has happened because of deep understanding of the biology of the mouse and the human and the translocation of tissues and cells without rejecting the graft from the human, like lymphocytes or cells or organs or anything. That deep knowledge is not possible in India because they don't have basic courses that understands mouse, rat, rabbit, guinea pig biology to the extent that they can be used for research. They are only taught as husbandry. That is the first challenge. The second challenge is the quality of the animal that can be provided in the Indian environment was missing when I came in 2008. Since then, I have probably convinced, along with the people in US, at least 4 of these top vendors which supply class A animals. Like, I don't want to name few of them, but all 4 of them. So Charles River, Envigo, Jackson, and Taconic. All 4 I have discussed and told them this is the market where it is an open space for you to capitalize on not just providing these models, but also teach the Indian community and build the ecosystem. And all 4 of them are here today. And because of my need for BMS and Syngene, and all the CROs now, all the drug companies now are benefiting out of that vision that we had in BMS. So with that class A and then being here now, I see a brighter future now because transgenic models are now available in India. If not from Indian academics or Indian students, people are learning quickly, adapting themselves to these models and creating this. So the challenges are being met, but it was truly a very frustrating experience. But I would like to add one thing to this is not everything can be discovered or invented using animal models, because recently you and I work on alternatives, and we clearly see that the FDA Modernization Act that is passing on now, which is approved, is to consider alternative models in place of animals, and they actually mandate it if an animal model is not available. And even if it is available and if it's not effective, they should use alternatives like spheroids, organoids, 3D printed, microphysiological systems, organ on a chip, and so on. So there's lacuna in understanding even these basic sciences now not just animals in India. So now with industry academic collaborations that Professor Edina pointed out and many speakers pointed out, we are at a vantage point right now where we understand deeply from the industry that we need all these things. What we also understand is academics in India cannot provide this. How the industry is addressing is bringing collaborations between class A vendors and breeders, bring them on board, and probably scientists like many of us who know the innovation of advanced alternatives. So it's a conglomerate of all this put together that is going to solve the problem. But the challenge is there. It will remain there for some time. But with the new laws and regulations, I think there will be a switch for people to learn things very fast. And people like C.S.N and all these people who are innovating drug discovery in India, I think they're going to quickly learn that they have to have this here and probably going to put more force into this.
If I could summarize what you said, Suresh, and very well said. One, you think there's not enough training and hands-on training and personnel. Right. The other thing you're saying is that is a stopgap, but there are other things that
Uday, we can't hear you, Uday. Sorry.
You can hear me, or
yeah, this is better.
Shouting.
No, this is better. Yeah.
So Manish can hear me. So yeah. Yes, thank you. So we got a summary, right, of what? Thank you. I want to come to Prasant here of Sweden. Kudos to you for entering what I think is a very high risk and high reward game. Drug discovery of an NC starting from an idea, sitting in India and hoping to deliver a product one day is like moving a mountain. Let me be honest with you. But you've done a great job. You have started to have a scaffold, you have NCEs. How do you plan to mitigate the risk? I mean, you've just entered the lion's den. You haven't even seen the lion yet, right? How do you plan to mitigate this risk? How do you plan to raise the money? Who is going to invest in you? Have you thought through as scientists, I'm only comfortable thinking about science, but these are real life challenges you will face as you become more successful. So what is your strategy to mitigate the risk that comes with being in a high reward business?
I think, yes, this is a high risk, high reward business, but fortunately for me, I think I had spent more than 2 decades with a lot of innovation companies in India. And as I think C.S.N also mentioned that, we need to create that downstream revenue every now and then. And I think we were successful in doing that. So given that whole background where we came from, and it's not like pure science, but I think there is a lot of business is also involved when we are actually doing the drug discovery, basically. And that experience lend us to actually take this, dive into. So it's not like me alone. I also have my partner Uday with me. So between two of us, what we actually really bring is a major synergy. When I have a lot of discovery and operation experience, he brings in a lot of regulatory clinical development operations. So I think as a team, we really know like how to take a drug from the bench to bedside, right? So coming back to the funding, so I think the way we had actually been able to fund ourselves for last 2 years without actually having any government funding per se, but I think just now we entered into with a big grant as a support, basically. So certainly, and you also mentioned that, that 50 lakh is not something which is going to drive us, but we really see that as a motivation for our own team, basically, and also validation of our own science, typically. So going forward, actually, we had already started involving with a lot of VCs, and we are moving out and looking out for different level of funding. And as really Manish also mentioned, I think there are a lot of innovative models out there in the market where you will be able to raise the funds basically, right? Uh, like for example, when we started, we actually did a lot of crowdfunding, like an angel funding, basically. Okay, so those were, and those are those individuals who are actually, as you rightly mentioned, that there are certain pharma professionals who had made certain millions of dollars, and then in their personal capacity they are investing. There are also a lot of pharma professionals who are actually there at high end, and they understand this business and this risk basically. So they are also associated with us. At the same time, we are also trying to get into certain level of what I can say on the valuation front. We are not typically getting into. So there are a lot of new what I can say models where you don't have to define the value per se the time you actually raise the funds, basically, right?
No,
So
I don't understand.
so it's more about
you see a human. So you
yeah.
have to define those
Yes,
values.
yes. So yes, you have to define it. So once you have, because when we are actually talking with, as you rightly mentioned, that there are no people who really want to engage with you in the mid stage, basically. Okay, so we don't classify ourselves as early stage, and we also don't have like, for example, a big CEO or something like that who stands in a market and raise that level of fund, right? But what we want is that we want our science and our commercial potential of our targets to really help us raise that next level of funds, basically. So that's our approach about going through. And since we are operating a lot of our R&D from India, we believe that the kind of cost which is really essential. And I think Dr. Prem Kumar Reddy actually summed up in his last slide also, like talking about using that $2 million to reach a certain stage, and that's the major inflection point for any VCs, basically. So I think that's where we are looking at. And to be frank enough, we had practiced that and we created value in our past organizations, and we feel that this can be done. That there is no that, and during the same 10-12 years or maybe last 20 years, there are several Indian R&Ds that shut down their shops, and those R&Ds have been actually shut down by big pharmas. Okay, so it's not that they don't have revenue, but probably they don't have the right team or maybe the right targets where they really want to focus, or there is no typical commitment from the management that that they can actually fund some certain level of money, because as per our understanding, getting a what I can say, a para for ANDA, right, is equal to getting a compound in phase 1, basically. So it's as simple as that. So we are actually taking the discovery route rather than getting into generics, basically.
Okay. If I can then get you're fully aware of the risk of the journey you're taking, because you have the experience of having seen that in your past life, and you have a plan. For example, you have defined certain value inflections in your business. Only then you will go raise. You're not every day beating down the bushes and saying, "Giving me the money." Is that a reasonable summary of what you said? Okay. Okay. Mamta, I think we got that. Ajit, I'd like to have your views on, how to mitigate. I mean, you are on the board of several such companies, and, I'm not going to name them, but what is your advice to these people who want to hit the home run, which is get a blockbuster out, sitting in India with probably, I don't know, 5 crores or whatever today. So what is your advice to such startup companies?
Yeah, no, I think from my point of view, I think the best thing is to ensure that the target that they're working on, or the molecules or the platform they're working on is foolproof. I think that's very, very important. That is number one I want to convey. The second is be close to clinical or the end user. In this particular case, if it is drug discovery, that's the focus of today's discussion. Then I think there's nothing like having a clinician on board helping you, as an advisor, or get input right from day one. I think it's very important to make sure that the translation is always there. Otherwise, we are talking about two different worlds. You come up, you get excited, okay, and then only to realize that it doesn't work in the clinics. Like Dr. Prem Kumar Reddy said, you see the results in the animal, but to translate into the clinic is a far long way. So it's important to get input from clinicians right at the beginning, have them as an advisor or as a clinical advisor, scientific advisor, get them involved, get their thought process, keep them posted all the time, because they will know, how exactly to handle the project and then, move it forward. So without that basics, things are going to be quite challenging. Secondly, develop a model that is much more acceptable throughout. I mean, we would like to do something that is unique, but even if you're doing something unique, try to make it much more accessible, for others to use, so that it can be implemented much faster in the market. I think that's also becomes very, very important, because even if you are going to partner with a bigger pharmaceutical company, they will be looking at, how seamless it will be to the existing system that they have in, internally. Then only they'll say, okay, this is a good match for, for our portfolio, and then they try to, discuss with you to see how they can license your product. So from that point of view, certainly, keeping in mind that the target is much more translatable right from day one, and then secondly, make sure that it is not, it's a unique platform, differentiated platform, but on par with what's going on with the, for acceptance wise. Okay.
Yeah.
So these two, and the third point I want to make is perhaps, I think Manish talked about it. I think the pharma companies in India have to definitely support the startups. I think government is doing fantastic job. Manish again discussed a lot about it, but I think it's pharmas have to help out these startups. There are plenty of startups with a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but unless pharma companies come, Indian pharma companies come and say, okay, do some hand holding financially, it's going to be difficult. But I'll stop it there, Uday.
Yeah. Excellent insights, Ajit. I think the first one, having a clinical and patient focus of the product from day one is critical, looks like. I mean, and 9 out of 10 companies do not. They get so engaged with their science, they forget that what's being developed, the patient has to benefit, right? So I think that was a beautiful point. That the second point you're making is that have an understanding of what the industry is looking. It has to be, because part of your business plan is to hand it off to industry one day. So have an understanding of what the industry expects as a package when you want to hand it off from day one. Okay. Was that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, beautiful, Ajit. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to stop, and maybe we should.